This is the Johnny Cleveland Podcast, all things Cleveland sports, with your host, John Suchan. And welcome to another edition of the Johnny Cleveland Podcast. How is everybody on this? Well, let's see. We're recording this now. It's actually Easter Sunday, but we are going to have this out later in the week. So, welcome to the show. I'm very excited that we have a special guest today, all the way from NFL Outdated, a great Twitter page out there. Andy from NFL Outdated, who I've had an opportunity to be on his podcast in the past. Welcome, Andy, to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I love the music. I was just vibing with that. You know, I'm ready to go. I'm ready for all the draft and everything because, you know, you got to love free agency. You got to love all this. But when you get the draft, you start to get close to the season. I'm excited for 2023.
Oh, absolutely. So I see if you're watching this on our YouTube or Twitter, Andy is a diehard Bears fan, and he's wearing his gear. I don't have my Browns gear on, though. I've got my Cavs stuff on right now, but unfortunately the Cavs lost in their season finale today to Charlotte, but they've got the playoffs ahead. Did the Bulls make the playoffs? Or no? Or did they
Technically, get in? Yes, they're in the play-in.
Okay.
As a Bulls fan, I almost wish they didn't, but there we are. So,
excellent. So we're here to talk about the Browns. This is our Johnny Cleveland podcast, and we are part of the Fans First Sports Network, our Fanatical Elves. We are the Fanatical Elves Network, part of the Browns affiliate, and so we talk Browns. We're just a bunch of ordinary guys that like to talk a lot about the team that we love, that we've cherished, and so we're going to talk a little bit about the Browns, kind of what your perspective, Andy, from NFL Outdated. I know you interview a lot of folks across the country that from various teams, and you get a lot of really, really good takes. I'd love to hear about your takes today, what your impressions are about what the Browns have done so far through free agency with the upcoming draft. Browns don't have a draft pick in the first or second round. You, of course, your Bears, a lot of news with your Bears. So just your general overview about where the Browns are right now, what your takes are and initially.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. So I told you offline that I did go ahead and go on a Packer podcast, just kind of on a, you know, I hadn't planned on it. So went on one Friday night, and we were kind of going through schedules, and it's always interesting. You kind of look at schedules before the draft and everything. And I remember I did this last year, and I looked at certain games. You kind of say, okay, well, is that a winnable game? What do you know about this game? What do you know about this opponent? Yeah. Last year, this time I looked at the Giants game and I said, the Bears could win that one, you know, and there were a few teams like that I'm like, okay, this is what you know, this is what they are. But then obviously we found out that the Giants, because of Brian Dable, they're a lot better, you know. So on Friday night, you know, going through this, looking at the schedule and looking honestly at my Bears, you know, projection for 2023. Yeah. I looked at that Cleveland game and I just don't know what to think, so like, I feel like with this current iteration of my Bears, Cleveland has already had a hand in this team, with the just annihilation of Justin Fields in his first game. And just, I'm hoping long-term, that he doesn't have any yips from that. 'Cause that was just, crazy because of what Matt Nagy did and the offensive line and all that.
Didn't Myles Garrett have like 5 sacks against him in that one game?
I don't know. I thought I counted like 15, but it was, I had to turn it off. It was, it was one of those things that, if you look at like a rating of a movie, that's not even an R. I'm sure that movie, to the Bears fan, that was like an NC-17 movie. It was just, that's how bad it was. And
so that 2 years? That was 2 years ago, right? No, was that just last year? It was 2 years.
2 years ago. 2 years ago. That was kind of his baptism by fire. They thought they'd throw him in, and they threw him in and threw.
Well, I'm in the heart of. I'm here in Buckeye land, right? I live here in Columbus, so we are. Giant supporters of Justin Fields, but he really, this last year seems to have, his mobility, he's got a lot of things coming into this next season that are very promising.
I agree. Yes. And, even looking back at that game versus the Browns, there's been a lot of growth since then. Mm-hmm. A lot of it has to do with coaching. A lot of it has to do with, personnel around him. Mm-hmm. And so I'm excited about the possibility. Does he have to improve a lot? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And obviously there's a lot that can still happen in free agency and the draft and all that. And I'm sure we can kind of get into that later, but I looked at this Browns game, and it's at Cleveland, and I just knowing where the Bears are right now, I don't know what the Browns are, and but I still think where Deshaun Watson is, in my opinion, they're still a little bit ahead of the Bears. So I am not, like, at this point kind of looking at it as a potential W. But it is so interesting.
If that game goes. Is that going to be an early game? I have a feeling like in my gut, it's going to be one of those first couple games of the season.
That's a great point. Cause it'll be interesting. Obviously, talking to Packer fans, they're like, well, look at Justin Fields' record. And he was 3-14 and all that. But if you look at the totality of his season, you look at it, progressively got better. Cause I went to that Texans game, and that was just, they won, but it was horrendous offensively. Yeah. And then I also went to the Dolphins game, and that was the first game with Chase Claypool. And you could see just a remarkable difference in fan base from just what they were doing with some of the other players, just with the threat of Claypool. So you look at that and Fields' growth. I think that's good. So that'll be interesting to see kind of as far as, getting used to, obviously with DJ Moore coming in and other offensive linemen that come in. So if it's early, it may be a different story as opposed to later on in the season.
Where did they fall? The Bears got Elijah Moore. Where did they fall? DJ Moore. They fell. Where are they on in the draft order now?
So now they're number 9, and so obviously they're looking at an offensive lineman, Peter Skoronski possibly, but I really like it. I'm sure you guys do as well in the area, Paris Johnson, and I'd definitely be interested to hear kind of your take on Paris Johnson. But I like him, and what I like as far as when you have kind of a new regime, and the Bears are still kind of in second year of the new regime. You want to know that they actually have some football acumen, right? And I feel like, especially at the most important positions, whether it's quarterback or whatever. Yeah. But this, like when you're building a football team, offensive linemen and defensive linemen are the obviously quarterback is right there, but then the trenches is important, right? And when you have someone like Ryan Poles who's played college ball with Matt Ryan, who's been right there. I think that's important. And so that's what I'm looking at kind of in the draft, that they're going to target that area, whether they kind of, take someone at 9, whether it's Paris Johnson, or they kind of trust their evaluations and kind of take someone a little bit later or do some more trading. We'll see, but that's definitely got to be addressed in the draft of the Bears.
Now, the Browns are completely opposite kind of storyline as far as going into the draft. They don't pick till pick 74 right now. I'm working on an article for Dog Pound Daily. I contribute to them and Cleveland Sports Talk and King James Gospel. But the article I'm working on right now are disastrous moves that the Browns could make at that pick 74. I was talking to another couple of my colleagues about that. You were just talking about like offensive linemen, defensive linemen. I think one of the moves that some people have already thrown out there is that would be disastrous if the Browns went like with another offensive lineman in that pick. I think they could move out of that pick 74 too and continue to pick up more draft picks for future year. But that's one move. We've got a good running game already with Nick Chubb. If they took a running back at 74, I think that might surprise some people.
Well, so I guess that's my question as well. So Kareem Hunt is not going to be back, correct?
No, and that's been in the news again today. It came out. Mary Kay Cabot, who writes for the Cleveland Plain Dealer, she basically said again that the Browns front office thinks that Kareem is too slow. I've written an article recently about Kareem too, that, could he be coming back? Potentially still out there. He'll probably be one of those players that at the last minute or they get into training camp, another player on another team gets injured. I think he'll still continue to play. Obviously not here in Cleveland.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. I mean, you look at the landscape of the NFL as far as running back wise, and Nick Chubb is obviously right up there. I mean, fantasy wise and all that. And it'll be interesting to see how this affects him in a good and positive way. Like from the outside looking in, I love Nick Chubb, but having another dynamic running back right there, like Kareem Hunt, I'm sure that takes miles off a running back. And so like from a Bears perspective, we had David Montgomery, a fantastic player. And I think they tried to sign him, but obviously he wanted to sign with the Lions. And I think that'll be a good pickup for them. But I do like what the Bears did. It feels like right now with Dante Foreman and, they've got like a running back by committee. And when you look at some of the Super Bowl teams, the last at least 3 or 4 Super Bowl teams have not had a workhorse running back. It's been running back.
Well, and committee. See that, Andy, that's the discussion we're have a lot with the Dog Pound Daily crew, Cleveland Sports Talk guys here on the Fanatical Elves Network, is that what you just said, that scenario, and the fact that the Browns have had invested, Nick Chubb, and people love Nick Chubb here because he works so hard and he plays the game right. He's a team player. But like you said, these other teams that are winning and going to the Super Bowls and winning Super Bowls aren't necessarily have that star back. Backs aren't as important as some of us, especially older fan base of the Browns, like to admit.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, obviously the game has changed, and you have dynamic quarterbacks. I mean, that's going to be huge. For all contenders, you have to have some type of dynamic quarterback. I know you'd say running quarterback, and a lot of Packer fans will say, "Well, Justin Fields is a runner." Well, I mean, this. You look at Ohio State; he didn't have to run at Ohio State.
No,
in Chicago, he had to run. It was by necessity. And when you look at the Browns, they've got Deshaun Watson, and I mean, I'm interested to see kind of like what step he will take. I mean, does he still have it? I mean, obviously he has the money, so he has something.
Why don't we? I'm gonna take a quick break. Pause here, and we're gonna have some commercials, and then we'll pick up that conversation about Deshaun here in just a split second. So, folks, this is the Johnny Cleveland podcast, and you're part of the Fanatical Elves Network. We've got Andy from NFL Outdated that's joined us from Twitter, and we'll be right back, folks. Okay, we're back. So let's talk a little bit about. So we're discussing about Deshaun Watson, and where do you think that is leading the Browns? Because a lot of Browns fans were like, I was one of them, 6 games in. I mean, not expecting him to be a miracle worker, but he had 2 years off from football. But should we expect, there's this part of the population fan base in Cleveland that thinks, okay, he's going to come out blazing fire and be what he was 4 years ago. And I'm like, that's just not going to happen. And so
where do you see that going with the Browns? Because they are going to open it up with this new offense with some of the players they brought in. So where do you see that in Deshaun?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously you have a talented quarterback in Deshaun Watson, or, whatever quarterback you have, if they have the talent, that's fantastic, but you also have to surround them with, weapons. And when you look at the Browns, Amari Cooper, Peoples-Jones, I'm sure he's been a kind of nice surprise. It's interesting. You have Marquise Goodwin now, Elijah Moore.
I really like that pickup, especially with the veteran. He's got he's not knocked the socks off any season, but he's a good, solid guy that can get you 15, 20 catches. And then Elijah Moore, I guess that's the other thing. Everyone's excited here in Cleveland. But he was great at Ole Miss. A lot of talk coming out of the draft, but he's been average and obviously maybe underappreciated with the Jets. So we'll see what happens. But like you said, the Browns already have Amari Cooper. They already have Donovan Peoples-Jones, and you only have one football. So.
Right. And so it will depend on obviously how the offense, how they scheme them open. And you look at Elijah Moore, he's 5'10". What Cooper, when you look at Cooper, he is, he's 6'1". So, I see Cooper being obviously that one that, is going to be the go-to guy. I don't know. I mean, Peoples-Jones, has he kind of been more the one to catch more of the touchdowns, like when you're in the red zone? I mean,
no, he hasn't been. That's the thing. He hasn't. So, I mean, Elijah Moore's caught a few, and he's had that first season when he was a rookie, he was kind of used more. But now with the Jets having Garrett Wilson, I'm not sure.
Because I was to say, you signed David Njoku, then you re-up him.
Yes, and then we picked up that other kid from the Texans, like Akeem. No, it's
Jordan Akins.
Yes, Jordan Akins. Yep. So there's a lot of question marks because we've been, we get back into the draft kind of conversation as far as where the Browns might go. It seems like, that pick 74. Are they gonna go with another defensive tackle, or they going to go with an edge? I wrote an article for Dog Pound Daily today about some edge rushers, like a Carl Brooks kid out of Bowling Green, small school, but could he, the MAC has produced some pretty decent talent over the years. Carl Brooks had a pretty decent time there. There's a kid out of Army. Can't think of the kid's name off the top. Andrew Carter, big lanky guy, played at Army. So do they go there? There's some question marks there. But getting back to tight end, like you were mentioning about Njoku, is that an area that the Browns draft? Because they've had a kid named Harrison Bryant for the last 3 years, and he's been good. But since they've picked up the other guy from the Texans, do they decide that they're going to part ways with Bryant and pick up another kid in the draft?
Yeah, I wonder. And so you wonder too, and maybe, I don't know if you've heard, much around about this, but Akins was around for Watson, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
So you talk about kind of having that tight end, for quarterbacks, is definitely that security blanket. And so that could help. One player I was going to ask you about, and who I really loved, and I actually in Dynasty had picked him up and had kind of stashed him for a little bit, is David Bell. I'm really interested to see exactly kind of his place in this offense, because I mean, I went to Iowa and he just torched us at Iowa.
Yeah, I think we've had that conversation when I was on your show.
Yeah.
It surprised me it didn't surprise me with what he did last year. His production was less than I thought it would be. He caught 14 passes maybe on the season. He was such a strong receiver in college. He didn't drop anything.
And he was able to get a lot of touchdowns. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, he had some passes this past season that he dropped, maybe just being indoctrinated to the NFL and just Butterfingers, who knows? But I mean, definitely he's going to get another season. But there's other guys that the Browns have, like Demetric Felton and like Andrew Schwartz, who have been. They've thought that they would be something, but they're not gonna make the team.
Felton's not even gonna make the team.
Well, no, I mean, you think about it. Felton was drafted in the 6th round out of UCLA. There aren't too many 6th-round picks, especially in Browns history of drafts, that are very successful. I think there was a moment when he came in that rookie year and he was doing some things, scored a nice little touchdown. I think that's that first year. But last year, what really got to a lot of fans quickly was he was Butterfingers catching punts. He dropped several, recovered some of the fumbles, but lost a couple, just lost a lot of confidence. You could just see it in his play. So he's going to have a hard time because you're thinking, okay, running backs, they're lacking that right now. Wide receivers are stacked, but getting back to the running back part, it's like, where does he fit anymore? And if they draft a running back again, or they draft another wide receiver, it just doesn't seem like he's going to cut it.
Now, it's interesting that you had said the Browns are stacked at wide receiver. And so when you look on paper, I mean, when you look at on paper, they should be, especially with Peoples Jones and what he's kind of become, and Amari Cooper. That would be a question mark of mine, is like, how are they going to use all these players?
And even like the Browns fans, what we do here too is we like to jump way ahead still. And so the people are already talking about Donovan Peoples-Jones playing out his contract. Now he has 1 year left. And so the thought is, well, the Browns aren't going to re-sign him, so they'll just get somebody else through the draft, because there hasn't been a lot of discussion about that. So there's some concern there with people already projecting that. And we're not even close to starting the next season yet. So
right.
It's putting undue pressure on these young kids. I like Peoples-Jones. I think he really did flourish. He came on. The one thing he wasn't doing was scoring touchdowns last year. He was catching a lot of passes, but I think he got one touchdown, maybe two on the season. So I think that'll increase. But you think about it, all these weapons that the Browns are supposedly going to have, Deshaun Watson can only get the ball to a player or two or score himself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But let me ask you, just on the finish up, kind of like our draft part here, do you see anything like as far as the Browns needs, in your opinion? I mean, we talked about kind of like the linemen. I would not be, like I mentioned already, I think they will probably pick up another running back just to bring somebody in the late rounds, kind of like a Demetric Felton, like they did a while back. I even think they're going to bring in a quarterback. There's that kid out of UCLA, Thompson. Mm-hmm. Do you see any other needs or any other players that you think that they might target?
Well, I guess my question would be on the linebackers. Do you think, they're, going to kind of need to make a move there?
Who's the linebacker? You probably know this from Purdue. Well, there's a couple guys from Iowa, but then there's a kid out of Purdue, Graham, last name Graham. I've done a little article on him, or included in one of my pieces. And then you've got a couple guys there at Iowa.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Jack Campbell will last there.
Right, he'll go. Yeah,
but when you talk about defensive players, I think.
What about like a player like Nick Herbig, who plays in Wisconsin? Like he's kind of like a tweener. He's kind of like a linebacker, but they're projecting him kind of on the edge. But he's small. He's like 6'2", 240.
That definitely could be a fit. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's the thing too. Like in the Browns defense, the discussion here has been that with the way that they are going to play defense with Jim Schwartz as the new defensive coordinator, that they're not going to utilize. I mean, how they use the linebackers isn't as important. So they have Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. They've got Anthony Walker coming back. They've got Taki coming back. So, I definitely think they're going to draft they will draft a linebacker. But how they use him, there's that kid down in Arkansas who's also kind of a tweener. What what is his last name? I always forget it.
Yeah, I do too. So
it's like, yeah. Anyway, so you think linebacker?
I would think they would maybe. I mean, defensive line. Obviously, they're now that Myles Garrett's there. They were you surprised that they let the other guy go?
Clowney.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole thing at the end of the season was just really Clowney just is a very, he's a selfish player.
Yeah.
And I think he had enough of the attention always being on Myles Garrett. It's going to be very interesting because I think, fans here and like any fan, like even in Chicago, we tend to forget in the offseason how things are going during the season. And, Kevin Stefanski, the Browns coach, will be under a lot of pressure to produce. And you think about it, they brought in Jim Schwartz, defensive coordinator, who's been a head coach. If you go into the season, the Browns are struggling, they're 2-4, 2-5 again. I think that's going to be really hard on the fan base, and they're going to be calling for Stefanski's job again.
Yeah, I mean, and it'll be interesting. You kind of look at the division as well. And I messaged you. There was just news that Odell Beckham signed with the Ravens on a 1-year deal.
Did he really?
Yeah. So
there you hear breaking news here. Odell signed with the Ravens. Oh man, the Ratbirds. Oh, dude, that'll be fun.
But it's such an interesting signing, though. You think about because they don't even have Lamar set, and you wonder if that was kind of a play to kind of get Lamar to be like, okay, we've got a wide receiver now. We'll kind of go forward. But we'll have to pay attention to that. And you look at it. I mean, the division really is Cleveland. Can make some noise in the division. I mean, I don't know who knows what Kenny Pickett really is. He had some good plays, but they're still out on him. Ravens defensively they're there, but if they don't have Lamar, do
you suspect with the news just breaking that they will get Lamar back? Then now,
I think they will. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, I don't think Lamar blinks at this. I think he still stays and wants his money because of Deshaun. I mean, Deshaun, that Watson contract really kind of like, has really set that market. And
so how much is that to blame? So you're outside of the Cleveland market. We've had a lot of discussion in the last couple of weeks because Browns fans and contributors here to like Dog Pound Daily, we feel like we're being scrutinized unfairly, and that the NFL has kind of created this narrative to blame it on Cleveland again.
I don't know if the whole blame it on Cleveland, but I just think when you look at a quarterback is the most important, position. And I talked to a lot of Packer fans, and some are honest, and they're like, okay, we're losing Rodgers, we're going to take a step back. And some are like, oh no, we've got the third Hall of Famer in a row. And it's like, no, you need to be honest about your team. You need a quarterback. Jordan Love can maybe do good and show something, but if you're a franchise that doesn't have that marquee quarterback, you need to go out and get him. And the Browns, obviously, I've starved for a championship in Cleveland, so they went out and did what they needed to do.
Yeah.
Now, other teams don't need to do that. They don't need to pay, but other star quarterbacks are going to be looking at that and like, okay, well, I'm better than Deshaun. I'm this and this. Problem with Lamar is that he's his own agent. You can't separate the emotion out of it, of his value. And yes, he has tremendous value because you take him away from the Ravens, they're not making the playoffs.
Yeah. Oh no,
they're not. And it's even more wide open for the Browns. So, narrative wise, they did what they had to do, and so I wouldn't say blame, but
I don't think the Browns expect when they signed him too. I don't know if they necessarily thought that he would be suspended for 11 games. I think that was part of where they misstepped. But it is what it is. So are you looking forward to the draft? Not only, we're talking Browns, but I understand that you are going to be at the draft. Are you attending?
Absolutely. I'm excited. Obviously, you look at this time of year, there's eternal optimism for all franchises, right?
Yeah,
And with it being in Kansas City, and we've got some family there, so I'm going to go ahead and go.
Excellent.
And taking the kids and all that. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how everything shakes out. And tickets are free and everything, but you have to, make sure.
I lived in Wichita. I think I've told you this, but I was in Wichita for 25 years. Mm-hmm. And I've been through Kansas City many a time. Love the city. It'll be a great venue. It's a great experience. I got to go to the draft when it was here in town and up in Cleveland a couple seasons ago, and that was a really neat experience for any football fan. It's one of those experiences that you should try.
Yeah, and so I feel like there's it's kind of we're kind of leading up to a lot of fireworks toward the draft. We don't know about Lamar, we don't know about Rodgers. All of this could happen that night, and I think just the opportunity to see it live, and then also maybe meet some players and media members. I think that'll be interesting to see and just see it from a different perspective. Are you
going to be able to get some credentials, or are we working on that, or?
I'd emailed them about that, but I'm not holding out hope that I'm going to. My hotel is just about 1.5 miles away.
Sure.
So we're close enough to be able to experience.
Is it near the plaza? Or where is it located? Where are they having it? Like the Union Station?
Union Station, and World War I kind of museum area, and so hopefully, obviously the weather's good, but either way, you
never know in Kansas. It could be those severe weather nights. You never know.
You don't. Yeah. And so, they're going to have a lot of different concerts and stuff. And so I think it's just going to be exciting, drama, for the teams. When you look at what the Bears did, I was excited,
Yes.
Going back to, when the Bears got the number 1 pick, I was excited because when you look at the possibility of what they could do, and now that they have done, getting DJ Moore, filling an immediate need for top wide receiver, and then trading back, getting some other picks, because you have to get draft capital to continue to fill out your roster, and the Bears are have been in that mode where they needed to rebuild, and now. Obviously, this year it will be really important to see how Justin Fields develops. But they're in position now, and they're starting to kind of put the pieces together. So I like that. And when, as a Bears fan, you kind of look at that and having a quarterback that you can believe in, that's dynamic, that can make plays. I mean, that does everything. Like I told you, I was at that Miami Dolphins game live, and there was just an excitement and just electricity in Soldier Field that we haven't seen.
It's a good feeling, isn't it?
It is. And so I get, kind of going back to your Browns thing, I get why they did that Deshaun Watson, because what he has done, right? And so, he's made a lot of kind of missteps in his life, right?
Yes.
But when you look at talent wise, that can, in the NFL, any sport, that can definitely win out. And now he's got that opportunity. It was interesting, obviously, they gave him all that guaranteed money, but that's what you need to do to have someone of that type of caliber. And I think to give you a chance to win, to give you a chance to get to the championship, to be in that position, that's all you want.
That's all the Browns fans. Yeah, we're always waiting for that year. We've had some ups and downs. We've started to kind of climb the hill again. It's Stefanski back. I think he's a good coach, and I think that's going to help too. We'll see how patient Browns fans are going through this first part of the season, but we'll have to get together when we find out when the Bears play the Browns here, and maybe do a show together again. So
let's do it.
How can fans reach out to you, or how can they find you on social media?
Absolutely. Everyone can find me on Twitter at NFL Outdated, on YouTube at NFL Outdated, and we do a weekly. It'll start up kind of more when the season goes, a weekly Freezing for NFC North podcast where we get a chance to be honest about our division teams. We've got some great people. Actually, one of our Vikings girls, she used to date one of the new Vikings free agents. So
there you go.
Kind of interesting that way. But we have some great fun on that.
Some good insight.
Good insight. Absolutely. Yes.
That's great. Andy, thank you so much for being part of our Johnny Cleveland podcast and the Fanatical Elves Network. And we'll look forward to having you on again. This is Andy again from NFL Outdated. Thanks and appreciate it. Everybody, thanks for joining our show today. And like I end the show all the time, remember, everybody, to keep smiling. Take care, everybody.